Welcome back to part 2 of our Silent Killer series on mold. Thank you for joining me. And today we're going to cover the common and not so common areas where mold can be found, hidden warning signs that you may have mold, and what you can do to test for it. Yesterday, we covered the different types of toxic molds, what kind of illness they can cause in us and our pets, and what colors they are so you can recognize them. So let's dive into today. Mold loves moisture. So common and not so common areas that can have moisture condensation are where it's easy for mold to grow. Let's have a look. We know some common areas: bathrooms, the showers, the bathtubs, the sinks, even under floor tiles. These are prime areas for mold. Basements, they're damp, they're dark. Perfect place for mold spores to grow, especially if you've had leaks or flooding. Kitchens, leaky sinks, refrigerators, even in the pantry if you've got condensation in there. HVAC systems, we've mentioned that yesterday. Mold spores spread through vents, ducts, especially again if there's condensation. Carpets and upholstery, if they get wet and they're not dried quickly and completely, mold can start growing there quickly and easily. What are some of the not so common areas where you might look? Behind walls and behind wallpaper. These you can't see, but mold could be growing there. Under flooring. Very important, because all it takes is a little water to get through the floorboards and you can have a perfect environment for mold. Inside appliances. Mold can grow inside your washer, especially front-loading washing machines, the door gaskets, the detergent drawer. Look in those places. Dishwashers, you have residual water or food particles in there. Warmth, these make dishwashers a perfect place for mold to grow. Refrigerators, in drip pans, water dispensers, in your water dispenser, you can have mold growing. Or seals. Around windowsills and frames, underneath sinks and cabinets, especially if there are leaks or plumbing issues. In attics and crawl spaces, do you have poor ventilation in your attic? Roof leaks, check those out. Inside furniture. Has a cushion or cushions in your couch gotten wet or had spills and they haven't been properly dried out? Mold can be growing in there. Behind or under appliances, refrigerators, stoves, again, washers, dryers, if there were leaks or condensation. On personal items, your books, clothing, cardboard boxes, are they stored in humid areas like basements or in closets that have humidity? House plants. Mold can grow in the soil of house plants and even on the leaves of your plants. If they're overwatered, this is an area for mold. In pet areas, our babies, their pet bedding, their bowls, are their bowls washed out and cleaned every day? Areas like where food. I know my cat Suki loves to use her paw to, move water around and spill water. If this or food gets, out often, regularly, spilled, these are places for mold to grow. So something to look at. Chimneys and fireplaces, crevices in the brick or the stone, combined with condensation, again, good place for mold. Behind large furniture or wall hangings, if there's any kind of moisture back there or the circulation is poor, this is a great place for mold to grow. And finally, in insulation, especially in fiberglass or cellulose insulation, if it becomes damp due to, a roof or a pipe leak, mold can start growing there. So this is a really good list of things to look at where mold could be growing in your home. The next thing that I want to talk about is hidden mold warning signs. Very important. There are obvious ones and there are not so obvious ones. Musty smells. That's a fairly obvious one. Is there an odor that won't go away that smells musty in your house? Look deeper. Discoloration. Stains on or spots, dark spots on walls, ceilings, floors. This can be a sign that mold is growing. Now, stains that reappear even after you clean them, this is an even stronger sign that mold could be growing there. Do you have moisture problems? Do you have any areas that have had leaks, condensation, consistent dampness? If you notice things like bubbling paint or peeling peeling wallpaper or warped wood, these are signs to look deeper. Even things that are not so common to think about, like increased dust or static. Mold can appear as excess dust, especially around windows, near vents, baseboards. So look there. Do you have discoloring on electrical outlets or switch plates? Mold actually grows through the walls if it's growing behind walls, and can show up as discoloration on these items. Now, we can also look at health issues as a warning sign. Do you have persistent cold-like symptoms? Do you find you have worsening allergy symptoms in certain rooms in your house? Do you have persistent fatigue or brain fog? If any of these conditions exist for you, look at mold as a possibility. A lot of times people don't think of it, but it could be the culprit. Now let's move on to some tools and techniques to determine whether you do have mold in your house and what type you have. There are things like moisture meters that you can use that detect moisture levels in walls and on ceilings, floors. So mold, if you see there's higher moisture, can be growing there. There are DIY test kits that you can get online. You can get them in hardware stores. They allow you to collect samples that you then send on to a lab for analysis to see if mold is growing. For me, in the house that I was in that was moldy, I used a company that's here in Texas. It's called Envirobiomics. It's a very good company. They work all over the country, and they sent me a test kit that I then sent back to them, and they had analyzed at their lab, and they handheld me through the whole process. This is a very, very important thing to remember. Air tests for mold are not accurate. They are not accurate. Swiffer tests are much more accurate. That's the kind of test I did with Envirobiomics. That's what I recommend for you if you're going to do a test. It's costly to go through a company like Envirobiomics, but it's so worth it when so much is at stake. So look into it, or look into ways to do Swiffer tests. If anyone wants more information on this company, I'm happy to give it. Just reach out to me. There's also infrared cameras that you can use to determine temperature differences. So if you see that in ceilings or in walls you have hidden moisture, because the temperature is raised as well, then you can know this is a place that you should look to see if mold is growing. Look, mold can be very, very sneaky, but we can be one step ahead of it, and it's so important to be one step ahead. So reach out to me if you have any questions about what I've covered. Tomorrow in part 3, or it may not be tomorrow, it may be in the next couple of days. In part 3, we're going to go over mold myths debunked. There are some things you may think about mold that aren't true. There are some things you wouldn't think about that are. And DIY cleanup tips for mold. So stay tuned for that. And to all, our best health ever.